What's up, Totem Pole Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Lambo and Matt's World of Sports. Today we are getting into the Ohio State head coach conversation. Ryan Day seems to be on the hot seat now after 3 straight losses to Michigan and, missing out on the college football playoff this year. They also lost to Penn State last year. There's more and more we'll get into. Shout out to Sideline Sports Network as always. And if you want some more Buckeye content that's not just a singular video, Sideline Sports Network _Buckeyes is scrolling in the ticker. Give them a follow on X. And if you want some merch to support the boys here at Totem Pole, TotemPoleNation.com is in the ticker as well. Let's get into it.
Well, Ryan Day. Okay. Well, Ryan Day took over for Urban Meyer. In basically 2018, obviously, he was 3-0 as the interim. Full time since Ryan Day's been the head coach in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, he's 56-8, 39-3 in conference play. We're not questioning whether he can win. We're only questioning if he can win the big games, the big stage. That terrible loss to Missouri raised a lot of questions. The transfer of Kyle McCoy raised a lot of transfers. I'm not even going to name the other guys because everybody transfers, comes and goes. The transfer portal is not stable. I'm not really using that against them. Everybody loses players. Even Alabama loses players. But here's the question. The quarterback play. I didn't think Kyle McCoy – now, the first 5 games, I didn't think Kyle McCoy was all bad. But, I mean, he wasn't a terrible quarterback where Ohio State was like 8-3. Kyle McCoy wasn't the reason you lost the game, maybe except Michigan. He had some mistakes here and there. But their offensive line has been a hell of a concern, but nobody really spoke on it except a few people. The offensive line wasn't that great. They didn't have much depth at the running back position. I didn't think they had much depth at the wide receiver position except Marvin Harrison Jr. You had a Buckle who was hurt. You had some other guy that was hurt as well. I just think when it comes to Ryan Day and Ohio State, they have lost the line of scrimmage against Michigan for 3 years in a row. They were always a team that was able to beat Michigan, but they could not do it. And there's something personal, and I'm not going to say personal in a bad way, but there is something going on in the Ohio State organization if you had your quarterback transferring before the bowl game or right after Michigan. There's something going on. I'm not going to rain on it for too long because obviously we're probably talking for a while. What are your thoughts on this? I don't think Ryan Day is on the high seat just because his record is 56-8, but he can't win the big game as of right now. That's what we have to criticize him at.
Yeah, so I mean, there have been former players that have been vocal about Ryan Day being on the hot seat, and obviously it's, every outlet has written about it, but it's really just because of the attention that rivalry game brings, I think, with Michigan, and losing 3 in a row is never going to, bring your fans on your side. And then you look at, I am going to bring up a few of the transfers because I think they're big. They have 19 guys in the portal, and to your point, that's not really a unique thing to Ohio State at all. But Julian Fleming left to Penn State. He only had 270 yards this year, but he was the 39th ranked transfer and the 7th ranked wide receiver in the portal. And as you know, there was over 1,200 guys in the portal. So a top 40 transfer is pretty big. And then below him, another wide receiver. Like you said, they didn't really have much depth this year, and maybe they don't think these guys are, the fit for next year, but I really find that hard to believe with what they're going to be losing. Noah Rogers is going to NC State. He didn't play this year as a freshman. He was redshirting. He was the 43rd ranked transfer and the 8th ranked receiver, so 1 spot behind Julian Fleming. And the reason that he was so high, even though he didn't play, was because in 2023, as a commit, he was the 40th ranked player in the 2023 class, the 8th wide receiver in the country, and the 2nd best player in North Carolina. So that's a big loss coming to that offense. And then obviously the thing everyone's been talking about is Kyle McCord going to Syracuse. And I agree that he's not like, I don't know, like the
Like the
top.
Justin Fields or the
Yeah,
Wayne
CJ
Haskins,
Stroud, like that's hard to follow up. It's hard to follow up CJ Stroud and what he did last year, but he did throw for 3,100 yards, almost 3,200 on 66%, and he had a 24-6 touchdown to interception ratio. So it's not like he played bad, and you said that he didn't play awful. He just wasn't really like blowing anybody out of their shoes or anything with his explosiveness. He doesn't really add anything on the ground. And he was the 46th ranked transfer, 10th ranked quarterback in this transfer class. So, like you said, it's not like he's just going out there and losing games every year. He's consistently keeping this team in the top 6 to, this year I guess was 7, but between 1 and 7 every year that he's been the coach. He's 3-3 in bowl games, including 2 Rose Bowls and a Sugar Bowl. And then he did lose in that national championship, obviously. But, there's just, it's the unrest and it's being a little spoiled for sure for Ohio State to be really considering moving on. Urban Meyer had consistent success and did win a national title. So it's hard to follow that up. But at the same time, it's not like he has a significantly better record than Urban did. And I think the only thing that's really driving this point of him being on the hot seat is the losses to Michigan. And while you can blame him for that to an extent because he is the head coach, you got to give Michigan credit and Jim Harbaugh credit for what they've done. They built the number 1 defense in the country. We can go back in the past and look at when, Ohio State won 10 plus in a row. I don't know the exact numbers, but like not 10, 7 in a row. I'm sure those Michigan defenses weren't the number 1 in the country. I'm sure they didn't have, always have a NFL caliber quarterback and, an NFL caliber running back every year. Like they always have draft picks. Yeah. But the explosiveness on offense that we haven't really seen in the past, it's always been ground and pound, Big Ten football, and then, having the best defense in the country. So take it as you will, I guess. To me, it seems like Ohio State fans are just a little bit spoiled with the success, and they're just trying to run them out of town because of 1 game per year. Now, it is obviously their biggest game per year, but I do think it's them being a little spoiled.
Can Ohio State get back to the national championship or get back to what it once was? That depends on the quarterback. Lincoln Kinholtz was the starter for Missouri, and then they had another quarterback play. If you watch that Ohio State-Missouri game, Ohio State didn't know what the hell they're doing. Now, I understand it was a bowl game, and there's a lot of opt-outs. I get that. But that quarterback play, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks. We've seen a lot of teams with opt-outs. Their quarterbacks didn't play this bad. Their quarterbacks didn't play this bad. Now, I give credit to Missouri for being a great SEC team that we all really didn't talk about. We talked about a little bit on here, but everybody else that disrespected Missouri, obviously. But when I look at Ohio State and what it means to be a Buckeye, their foundation is the quarterbacks. Dwayne Haskins. I forgot the other quarterbacks back then. Dwayne Haskins,
JT Barrett,
CJ Stroud. Those guys. Consistency of quarterbacks when it comes to Ohio State. And for some reason, after CJ Stroud, and I understand it's 1 year, it's like, oh, well, who's our quarterback? We don't have CJ Stroud. Some guy named Kyle McCoy. Like, who is he? He wasn't a big name. It was just kind of just somebody just had in the back pocket. Since you do the recruiting stuff for football, obviously, is there any potential that Ohio State can get any type of good QB? Because, look, you have DJ Uiagalelei. He went to Florida State. You have the transfer quarterback from Texas. He went to Duke. You have, what's up, Chance Fawcett? You have the Liberty quarterback is hitting the transfer portal as well after the loss to Oregon. is there a possibility that maybe Ohio State gets a Will Howard? Maybe because I feel like they need to get a big. They need to with the NIL stuff. I feel like they need to pay to get a big name quarterback with already experience. Because I'm not saying going through the bottom of your roster is bad, but if you want to win now, especially with the defenses that they're bringing in that conference, and we don't know whether Harbaugh would walk away after the national championship game or stay, that teams are going to get better, especially with the 12-team playoff picture. What's the quarterback situation for Ohio State? Should they get a big guy or a big name, or should they just stick with what they have?
So I know that a lot of Ohio State fans are happy with the number 2 that was behind McCord this year. I don't know what his status is long term, and they still have the number 5 recruiting class in the country. And in that class, they have Aaron Noland, who's a QB from Georgia, 7th best player in the state of Georgia. Which if you've watched any of my recruiting trail videos, which you can go find that on Totem Pole's YouTube page in the playlist, you'll know that Georgia is one of the top 3 or 4 states in the country when it comes to how deep the talent is. So being a top 10 guy in that state is huge. He's the number 6 quarterback in the country as a whole and the number 57th overall recruit. This is all according to 24/7 Sports. So, if they can get a year out of their number 2, who his name is slipping my mind right now, and then bring in Aaron Noland the following year, I think that you just stick with what you have. And then on top of that, you mentioned other teams are going to get better, and then, the playoff expanding. I think that doesn't really do anything but help them because they're going to get better at a higher rate, except for, 3 or 4 teams that are above them in recruiting every year. But it's not really a consistent 3 or 4 teams, but they're consistently within that top 5 to 4 range. They're bringing in, Aaron Scott, who's the number 2 cornerback in the country. They're bringing in Jeremiah Smith, who's the number 1 player in the country, period. He's from Florida, wide receiver, 5 stars, obviously the number 1 player, country, position, state. All right. So maybe that's why some of these wide receivers are leaving in the portal, because they're bringing in dogs to, revamp this Ohio State team. So recruiting wise, I mean, he hasn't done anything, I think, that would put me, at any sort of, not being pleased with him. I think he's done fine. And it's really back to what I said. I think the only reason that he's having the conversation of being on the hot seat or not is because he's dropped those 3 in a row to Michigan. Obviously, those games mean a lot. And when it comes to the Big Ten, it was the determining factor whether or not they were going to be able to play in the championship game. So they are really important games. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's not as important as it is, but at the same time, if he wins this year's, or if he won last year's, are we still having this conversation? I don't think so. And then next year with the 12-team playoff, even if they do lose that game to Michigan again, which if that were the case, he would have to win the national championship to keep his job, I think. But either way, the 12-team playoff is going to do nothing but help them, because now they're getting into that playoff, not automatically, but you're going to assume they're a top 12 team in the country year in, year out.
Yes, I do agree. Is Urban Meyer going to come back to Ohio State?
Hell no. Hell no.
No. But
no.
Urban Meyer that took them to a national championship that beat Alabama, I think, when they had Ezekiel Elliott, that they ain't gonna rehire him.
No.
I mean, Urban Meyer gave him the torch. Urban Meyer gave Ryan Day the torch. He not come back?
Bro, no shot.
Is he too old or what? He too old?
Okay, so health problems is a reason. We already saw him collapse on the sideline a few times with both schools, and he was, reported, which we can't really trust anything that was said when he was at the Jag, so I'm not going to bring up any of that. The only thing you can trust is that his fingers were getting a little busy at a bar where they shouldn't have been. So, but past that, I don't really think anybody's. I'm not, looped into the coaching world that much, so I'm not going to say for sure, but I don't really think anyone's looking at Urban Meyer to come fill that void at a school. I mean, you can't really plan on him being there long term. Like I said, like the health issues,
Yeah.
and then also like character issues that we've seen come to light in the past few years. That's fine if you still want to be on TV, but I don't know if you want that guy leading a group of, teenagers and young adult or early 20s in today's day and age. Like, yeah, 2007 and whatever, like it was a different world.
Social media hasn't really brought up back in 2007. It was just Facebook back then.
And
they had no
it,
Instagram.
it wasn't. I don't want to say like soft in a bad way, because treating someone like a decent human being shouldn't be something that's like a wild thing, which he really hasn't been known to do all the time. But back in that day, it was more normal to see coaches be like that. And now it's really not, I feel like, publicly at least. So do I think he's going to get back into coaching college? No. Is there any chance he's coaching at another level? Hell no, unless it's high school. So that might have been a little disrespectful, but who knows? I don't think Urban's in any sort of consideration.
All right, well, this is it for Lambo and Matt Sports. Thanks, John, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to Totem Pole Nation, as we're going to make our way to 500,000 followers by the end of 2024, which you have 362 days to accomplish. Thank you, Silent Sports Network, for the platform. Also, follow the Buckeyes on X. We'll catch you later for